Okay.
Okay. Okay, so this is a presentation for today. We're going to talk about happiness as presented by the philosophers, and we'll apply on a story that's very popular and it's very interesting to read. In practice for today is going to be in line with writing the essay. So we'll get to understand more about happiness. We'll discuss the idea, apply it to a story, and then write a short essay on it. So this is the outline for our class today. Discussion of the idea of happiness, revisiting the Aristotelian concept of happiness, discussing essay structure, and outlining the essay together so you go back home and you find it an easy task to write. I'm introducing here the short story that will apply on, which is Who Moved My Cheese? It was written by Dr. Spencer Johnson to communicate the idea of how to seek happiness. The story itself became viral during the economic recession of 2009, when people lost jobs and had challenges in their personal lives accordingly. So making sense of quickly changing living and working landscape, it becomes the main theme of the story, as well as presenting a mindset of flourishing amidst change. The idea of flourishing as one of the perspectives of happiness is the common theme between Who Moved My Cheese and our understanding of happiness as presented by Aristotle. The short story itself is interesting because it revolves around a metaphor. So there is an extended literary tradition of telling wisdom in story forms and using animals and metaphors to embody ideas. So Who Moved My Cheese encapsulates the search for happiness as an idea, fulfillment, and the idea of constant readjustments, discovery, mobility, and consistent work on talent and opportunity. The storyline, along with the various metaphors in the book, are reminiscent of the Aristotelian idea of eudaimonia, or what he terms for happiness. Are you following?
Yes.
Okay, so Aristotle and eudaimonia, this is the concept that he develops for happiness. He lays down factors known as prerequisites that would condition happiness within the concept of eudaimonia. So he insists on building skills, adaptation to one's changing circumstances as two major factors that lead to happiness and success. He insists that factors such as good looking, which means, of course, healthy, having a family or quality relationships, rational virtuous activities, which is investment in talent, and watching out for circumstances as factors that lead to happiness for people. Good looking for all classic philosophers usually means the person is healthy. So this is like ableism, if we just like use the terms that we use today. And it means that they have accessibility to services and chances for growth, because people who did not have full physical abilities, they didn't have access to education or growth. Quality relationships have always been connotative of belonging to a community, whether family or friendships, okay? So they have both senses, either belonging to family or friendships or a community by and large. Aristotle stresses that family as a networking space makes a person flexible. It gives them trust, and it fosters communication that builds across different age groups and tendencies of people around. So having both good ancestry and good children, it explains what he means by the idea of quality relationships. Okay. So now we go and look at the concept that Aristotle is discussing. Which of the conditions discussed by Aristotle are optional in our world now?
What do you mean by optional? Like, are they options, or like, are they available, or we can just let go of them and ignore them?
When he was discussing the conditions for happiness, he was relating them as if they are prerequisites. So can you be a happy person without any
without
of the
good
conditions?
looks? Of course. Maybe I can be happy even if there are problems with my health, or even if I don't have I don't know, the financial stability, whatever his prerequisites are. But I believe that right now there's the idea that it has to do with the outlook towards life, or one's mindset.
It's good practice if we are going to pick up a writing activity that we could just like zoom in on one of the things that you think are optional. So He requires that we have a family. He requires that we have good looks. He requires income. He requires talent. So can we be happy with missing out on one of them?
I believe yes.
So choose one.
Talent.
Okay, this is interesting because it's maybe one of his major concepts. So you think it's talent that you can leave out and you still be happy?
I think yes. I haven't met anyone who doesn't have talent, but I do believe that even if one doesn't have talent, he or she could find happiness.
This is interesting because we're going to go deeper now in the concept. So let's go to the second question. The link between the philosophy of happiness and the story, Who Moved My Cheese, is the theme of handling change. Can you discuss this idea of the proposition that is, if you can handle change, that makes you a happy person?
Can
What
you
do
just
think of this
remind me
idea?
with the concept of who moved my cheese? I remember there were two mice.
Yeah.
One of them
Yes, they were two mice where the cheese kept moving in the maze they were living. And they would take up change very easily and quickly. And the couple of mice are compared to two human beings who couldn't find the cheese, and they were lost in their thoughts and ideas. They were disappointed. So the theme here is, if you go quickly with a change, if you adapt very quickly, if you start searching for something new, it makes you happier. This is the proposition. And again, Aristotle would discuss the idea of managing circumstances and handling changes in order to make you flexible enough to be happy.
And which one of his prepositions is that, or his conditions?
Yeah, he had the condition of, if you can manage your circumstances well and you adapt to changes, that makes you a happy person. So it's one of the stated conditions.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree that there is a link there. And I do agree that it's an important and crucial factor to happiness.
Okay. And we can actually come in, remember personal examples or stuff when we get to write the process. So we are completing here the concept. And interestingly, he's talking about talent here. According to him, talent was as important as virtue. He would call it virtue. It's the rational virtuous activity. That is the consistent investment in talent, which is another requirement for achieving happiness. According to Aristotle, a virtuous person is someone who can grow his talent to live the good life. And he says that the person has an excellence of character if he has talent, which you see. This coincides with the idea of ergon, which is the reason for being, the function. We are here on earth for a reason, and that's our ergon. We get to know the reason for our being through investment in our talent. So this makes us happy because it's like, it resonates with the call. Why are we born here? It's the idea of the function of human beings. And instead of thinking the investment of talent is a side activity, he says, no, it calls for seriousness and commitment. And ergon refers to what skill and passion a person has, and the investment in his or her talent becomes the life mission. So can happiness come from commitment? This is the question. Can you be a committed person and you're committed to the growth of your talent? Is this going to give you happiness?
If you're committed to your happiness, you will have happiness. Not necessarily your talent. Again, this is how I believe it is. If you're committed to your happiness, you'll find something to make you happy.
Yeah.
Is, again, his definition here is a bit different than how I perceive happiness, or how talent, I'm sorry, how people commonly perceive talent.
This is excellent. We are going to need this for our writing practice. So it's excellent that you engage with the ideas. You don't just like take them by heart and that's it. Some of the ideas that he says make sense and others are just like irrelevant. So it's worthy that we write about that. So the falling back on talent, Aristotelian concept with the reward of connecting virtue and ergon, which is the talent and the reason for being. This results in happy and success, according to him. This is the thriving or the eudaimonia for his concept. So according to Aristotle, adapting to our behavior and actions to circumstances happens because we want to promote our talent, and we promote our talents because we want to be successful and happy. And having considerable income, contemplation, and reflection, as well as flexibility, helps people connect their talent to the world so they can have opportunities for growth. Much of his ideas can be exemplified in Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, that we are going to cover now. Happiness. And now, do you agree that investment in talent makes people happy? This is the point that we were discussing a minute ago, Amina, when you said that talent is not necessary. That would be interesting, provided that you give an example or two when you get to do the right thing. And you think that the pursuit of happiness can be a life mission? This is the Ergun part. He says that talent is very important. It makes us so happy. We cannot afford to miss out on it. And this is why it's like a life mission. And the third point is, what is Aristotle's idea of happiness? Do you think it's hard to believe or apply? Does it resonate with you? Maybe partly. So this becomes a very rich material for us to sit down and write about. And now we go back and read very quickly the story. I mean, ideally, we actually covered Aristotle previously and had the reading done for our class. And the purpose of our class today is to just like connect the dots together and make the writing practice. So 2 men and 2 mice share the maze as their living space, and the cheese appears in different stations and also changes positions. The maze stands for the unpredictability of life and workspaces, whereas the cheese stands for fleeting opportunities. The 4 characters stand for diverse reactions to the change, whereas the mice were quick to react, moving with agility and focus to look out for the cheese, which is very much like what Aristotle was saying. If you are talented and you're confident and you're a manager of your circumstances, so don't just like get lost in your thoughts and be irrational. Both men expressed their shock, disappointment, surrender, and it took them longer time to make sense of change and adjust to their plans. Okay, so accordingly, they were like, they would lag behind in their pursuit of happiness. The metaphor, of course, here is the maze for unpredictable spaces. The cheese goes for opportunity. Mice, they stand for agility, quick and focused reaction. Cheese is their natural attraction. They simply go for it. Could you see? And when they have these existentialist questions, they rely on memory and taking time to adapt. So for a class discussion, the quicker we adapt to change, the happier we get. Is this a true proposition? It's something for us to think. Then how can we adapt to our circumstances, accept change, monitor, or enjoy? So what kind of mentality should we adapt? And then what kind of changes can we accept? What kind of changes we cannot accept and we need to do something about? If we go back to the idea that talent stems out of Ergun, which is the reason for being, making talent a serious business, does the search for cheese align with the nature of the mice? So they are just mice. Is it very natural for them to just go for the cheese? Is what we're looking for in life aligned with what we are or who we are? How was time used to set off characters in the maze? So the factor of time, because at the end, all of them went for the cheese, but some were quicker than others. Okay, so now we are going to look at the components for the essay and maybe work on the draft together as we go. We know that there is this idea of happiness, and then this is the short story that we are going to use examples from, and we have our own ideas and our own experiences of happiness. So if we are going to start the introduction, it starts with we have the components itself. We have an introduction with a thesis statement, of course, and then we have a paragraph that speaks of one of the ideas that we don't like about Aristotle, which is the counter paragraph. And then maybe 2 other paragraphs when we have ideas that resonate with those of Aristotle. So we're going to speak about his idea and how we agree with it, and maybe examples about that too. And then the conclusion. So we have 5-paragraph essay, an introduction and a conclusion, 3 body paragraphs. One of them is a counterclaim, which is something that I don't like about Aristotle's idea of happiness. examples and explain. And then 2 following paragraphs with the ideas that I think align with my own idea of happiness, and you get examples for that too. So the introduction of most essays is 1 paragraph, and the introductory paragraph has a hook. So you start an example question, and then connecting information, and then the thesis statement, which is the most important component. So 2 opposite points of view are presented on a debatable topic, in the case of happiness that we're doing now, and a very clear stance for the writer is requested. So for the introduction, you connect the information, give background information, the topic, speak about eudaimonia, speak about Aristotle's conditions for happiness, and then you narrow down, why are you discussing happiness? What is the story that you're applying on? Why do you think that you agree with some or you don't agree with some of the ideas? You just like put your stance. And if you're writing philosophy, we don't expect you to agree with everything. And we don't expect you to disagree with all. So you write with respect and engage with the ideas themselves. The thesis statement, you have a counter opinion and the reasons, then your opinion and reasons, and we have examples here that will help you. So let's start the drafting. Can you engage with the idea of happiness? What concepts do you agree with? Which ones are not relevant to happiness, in your opinion? So you might take 3 minutes and draft a few sentences on that, and that becomes your introduction. And then we move to the body paragraphs. We have 1 counter argument paragraph and 2 pro paragraphs. That makes 3 of them. The body paragraphs make sure that you have a very clear statement of why do you think this idea of Aristotle does not resonate with your idea of happiness, okay? And you show weaknesses, you state examples. Then you go for the pro paragraph and you show, of course, every time, you show which idea of Aristotle you agree with and you say why. Like, for example, being healthy or not being healthy, being talented or not being talented, having a family or not. Okay, so what's the concept of happiness that you both resonate with? For the counter paragraph, this is the structure, first sentence, and the language used. So nearly 1/3 of the paragraph is dedicated for stating and explaining that counter argument. So don't be so quick to say, I don't agree with this. And then show refutation. A refutation means like, why do you think this does not hold? Or why do you think Aristotle has the other point of view? So it's like, it comes from the place of understanding. If we even engage with one of his ideas and maybe refute one of the ideas, we need to engage, like we understand why it doesn't work. And then write main counter-argument paragraph, where Aristotle suggests something that does not align to your idea of happiness. Like, I mean, here we're talking about talent. Talent is not really a requirement for people to be happy. So start writing about that. And then the pro paragraphs, the 1 reason only and evidence from the sources to provide your point of view, and go for the topic sentence. And then these are some formulas that can help you with the writing. Then write 1 pro paragraph where you choose one of the factors of happiness related by Aristotle and how it is featured in the story itself. Find examples in the story. And then you go for the conclusion, which is reasserting your stance or phrase, the thesis statement, summarize the main points of your body paragraphs and end up with a recommendation, suggestion, or a warning. And then the references. If you're using references like the textbook that you were using for Aristotle and Who Moved My Cheese, these are 2 sources that you should be using. If you have consulted any other sources, use them as well. So they must be listed in a reference page, and the entries should be arranged in alphabetical order. So this is the process of writing, and in a 45-minute class, you can do that together. And what we're left with is we have students with ready outlines that were developed in the classrooms. They just go and stretch the writings at home. So we have proper essays written on philosophy for freshman students. Thank you so much. Thank you.